Bigfoot and Santa Cruz Eerie whistle, one in the same? California's Redwoods hide a secret. Chapter 1. An unexpected find. Sunlight streamed through the dense canopy of the Santa Cruz Mountains, casting a golden hue on the forest floor. Tom Law, with his team, was there to test their new state-of-the-art drone. Among the silent giants, the Redwoods, they hoped to catch scenic footage for their ever-growing collection. What they didn't expect, however, was to capture something far more mysterious. "All right, everyone, clear the area. Let's see what this baby can do," Tom announced, adjusting the controls. The drone, a sleek black device equipped with the latest camera technology, buzzed to life and shot upwards. The team watched in awe as it soared over the trees, capturing the breathtaking expanse of the forest. After a few minutes of capturing the general scenery, Tom decided to navigate the drone down a little closer to the ground. Maybe, just maybe, they might find deer or other wildlife. The drone's camera focused and streamed live footage to Tom's tablet. That's when it happened. In a small clearing, blurry figures moved. They were not animals. They looked humanoid but bigger, much bigger. As Tom zoomed in, the figures started making sounds. Not just any sounds. These were melodic, almost musical, like they were communicating through whistles. The team, huddled around the tablet, watched in disbelief. Maria, one of the research analysts, whispered, "Are those?" Quote. "Bigfoot?" completed Jake, the team's tech expert. "Can't be. And what's with the whistles?" No one had answers, but everyone was certain that what they were witnessing was extraordinary. Tom carefully maneuvered the drone for a closer look, but just as he was about to get a clearer view, something, perhaps a rock or stick, hit the drone. The screen went static. Moments later, they heard the distant sound of their drone crashing. "Damn it!" Tom exclaimed. He was both frustrated about the drone and anxious about the footage they might have lost. After retrieving the fallen drone, which thankfully had saved the footage, the team set up a makeshift campsite to review what they had captured. As the footage played, the melodic whistles echoed eerily through the silent forest, giving everyone goosebumps. "That's otherworldly," Maria commented. Jake, always the skeptic, chimed in, "Could be a prank, you know? People dressed up, playing flutes?" But Tom was deep in thought. "I've heard of this. Stories passed down by the locals about creatures in the woods called the Whisperers. They said Sasquatches and humans once communicated through song. But it was all considered legend." Silence followed. The gravity of what they might have discovered weighed heavily on everyone. "Whether it's a prank or not," Maria said, "we need to investigate. This could be groundbreaking." Tom nodded in agreement. "This discovery is too big to ignore. We'll start first thing tomorrow." Night fell, and the woods were alive with nocturnal sounds. But above them all, if one listened closely, the faintest hint of melodic whistles could be heard. The Whisperers were near, and the mystery of the Santa Cruz Redwoods had just begun to unravel. Chapter 2. Legends and Locals. The morning sun broke through the towering redwoods, casting long, dappled shadows over the forest floor. It was a new day, and Tom Law's team was ready to delve deeper into the mystery of the Whisperers. Their first plan of action was to visit the local town at the base of the mountains. The town, a quaint little community with wooden houses and white picket fences, seemed like it was straight out of a postcard. However, beneath its serene exterior, the town held secrets and stories that had been passed down through generations. The team split up, agreeing to meet later at the local diner. Tom and Maria went to visit the town's small museum, while Jake and Rosie, the team's cultural anthropologist, decided to approach the old-timers who often spent their mornings on the porches of their homes. Inside the museum, amidst displays of Native American artifacts and old mining equipment, Tom and Maria found a section dedicated to local legends. The centerpiece was a faded photograph of what appeared to be a large footprint. The label read, "Legend of the Whisperers, Harmonious Protectors of the Santa Cruz Mountains." An elderly lady, the museum's caretaker, approached them. "Interested in the Whisperers, are you?" Tom nodded. "We've recently captured some intriguing footage. It seems to align with the legend." The caretaker, Mrs. Avery, smiled wistfully. "Many years ago, people spoke of them more openly. They told stories of nights when harmonious melodies echoed through the woods. They said it was the Sasquatches singing with our ancestors. A bond formed through song." Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Jake and Rosie approached a group of elderly men playing cards outside a barber shop. "Morning," Jake greeted. "We're researchers investigating stories about the Whisperers." "Heard of them?" The men exchanged amused glances. One of them, a man with a bushy white beard and sharp blue eyes, answered, "Heard of them? Son, I've sung with them." Rosie leaned in eagerly. "Could you share your story?" The old man, Mr. Hanson, recounted a tale from his youth. "One evening, as I was coming back from fishing, I heard whistling. Not just any whistling, harmonious, melodic. I followed it and found myself in a clearing. There, I saw tall figures, shadows really, and humans, all singing in unity. I joined in. It was spiritual." Jake raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Sounds like a fairy tale." But another old-timer chimed in. "I've heard them too. It's not a fairy tale. It's our history." However, not all were believers. A younger local, overhearing their conversation, scoffed. "Just stories to scare kids. There's no such thing as Bigfoot." But Rosie was persistent. "We've heard of a particular spot known for strange occurrences. Would you happen to know where that is?" The skeptic rolled his eyes but gave them directions to a secluded area deep within the woods, known to locals as the Whistling Glade. Later, as the team reconvened at the diner over burgers and fries, they shared their findings. The stories, though varied, had a consistent theme: an ancient bond between humans and Sasquatches, celebrated through song. "I think we should investigate this Whistling Glade," Tom proposed. The team was in unanimous agreement. By nightfall, they had set up camp near the rumored area. The forest, as darkness enveloped it, seemed even more mysterious. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound made them alert. As they sat around the campfire, Jake, still skeptical, played a soft tune on his guitar. The night was calm, and their earlier conversations weighed heavily on their minds. Then, as the embers glowed and the guitar strummed, a faint whistling began, harmonizing beautifully with Jake's tune. The forest seemed to come alive, and for a moment, the legends felt very, very real. They knew they were on the brink of a profound discovery. Chapter 3. A night of echoes. The campfire's glow danced on the faces of Tom and his team as they settled around it, recounting the day's revelations. Jake's guitar softly strummed a gentle melody, the haunting tune echoing through the vastness of the Santa Cruz Redwoods. As the night deepened, a distant sound caught their attention. It was a melodious whistle, faint but clear. One by one, the team members fell silent, straining their ears to capture the ethereal music. It was similar, eerily so, to the sounds they had captured on the drone footage. Maria, ever the tech-savvy member, swiftly set up her recording equipment. "This might be our only chance to capture this," she whispered. For the next hour, they sat in rapt attention, recording the mysterious sounds emanating from deep within the forest. The whistles seemed to be a conversation, a call and response between different entities. But just as abruptly as they began, the calls ceased. The ensuing silence was thick, almost palpable. The gentle hum of the forest, the chirping of crickets, the distant hoot of an owl, all had vanished. It was as if the very woods held its breath. "What just happened?" Rosie murmured, her voice barely audible. No one had an answer. But the strange occurrences were just beginning. Jake was the first to notice. "Hey, did anyone else see that?" he asked, pointing towards the dense tree line. Flickering lights, not unlike fireflies but larger, danced between the trees. They moved rhythmically, forming patterns, then breaking apart, only to merge again. Tom, ever the leader, decided to investigate. "Stay close," he instructed as they moved cautiously towards the lights. But as they approached, the lights disappeared, leaving them in pitch darkness. Retracing their steps proved challenging. Their previously clear path was now obscured by thick undergrowth. "This isn't right," Tom muttered, trying to find a way back to their camp. As they navigated the disorienting terrain, Rosie suddenly stopped, her face pale. "It's freezing here," she whispered, her breath visible in the sudden cold. The others felt it too, a distinct cold spot amidst the ambient warmth of the forest. Maria, who had an EMF detector as part of their paranormal investigation tools, noticed a spike in readings. "There's definitely something here," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Before they could investigate further, a rustling sound came from the bushes nearby. A large shadow, impossibly tall and vaguely humanoid, moved swiftly between the trees. It was there one moment and gone the next, but its presence sent chills down their spines. "Was that? ... Quote. Jake began, but couldn't finish. "A Sasquatch?" Rosie finished for him. It looked too shadowy, almost ghostly. They decided to hurry back to camp, the eerie occurrences pushing their nerves to the limit. Once safely back, they noticed their equipment in disarray. The recordings Maria had made earlier were distorted, filled with static, with only intermittent whistles breaking through. "We need to be cautious," Tom warned. "There's more happening here than we initially thought. We're not only dealing with the mystery of the whisperers but perhaps other forces at play." Maria nodded, her face grim. "I've heard of places where the veil between our world and others is thin. Maybe the Santa Cruz Redwoods is one such place." The rest of the night passed uneasily. Jumping at every sound, the team took turns keeping watch. The once welcoming forest now felt foreboding, hiding secrets that were both wondrous and terrifying. As dawn broke, the team, bleary-eyed and shaken, decided on their next move. They had come in search of answers, and despite the night's harrowing experiences, their resolve was only strengthened. Whatever mysteries the Santa Cruz Redwoods held, Tom Law and his team were determined to uncover them. Chapter 4. The mysterious illness. The morning sun broke through the dense canopy of the redwoods, casting shimmering rays of light that scattered across the forest floor. But as the team gathered around the campfire, brewing a pot of coffee, an ominous atmosphere lingered. The events of the previous night had left them wary, and their conversation revolved around their next move. Jake, scrolling through his phone, frowned as he caught sight of several news alerts. "Guys, there's something going on in the nearby settlements," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "Reports are pouring in about a mysterious illness." Maria leaned over to glimpse the screen. The headline read, "Mysterious ailment grips local communities. Sudden hearing loss and persistent humming afflict residents." "It seems to have started last night," Jake continued, skimming the article. "People woke up with a reduced ability to hear and complain of a constant humming sound in their ears." Rosie interjected, her face paling. "That's when we experienced those melodic calls and the abrupt silence." Could there be a connection? Tom, always analytical, mused aloud. It might be a coincidence, but it's hard to ignore the timing. "We need to get to one of these settlements and see for ourselves." They quickly packed up and set off in their vehicle, driving towards the closest affected town, Pine Haven. As they entered, it was clear that the illness had thrown the town into chaos. Residents gathered in small groups, conversing in raised voices as many struggled to hear. A temporary medical camp had been set up in the town square, with long lines of distressed people waiting for a checkup. Tom approached a middle-aged man who introduced himself as Mayor Johnson. Explaining their purpose and the events they had experienced in the forest, Tom asked, "Has there been any explanation for this sudden illness?" The mayor shook his head, concern evident in his eyes. "Doctors are stumped. It's not like any illness they've ever seen. And it's not just the physical symptoms, it's the panic it's causing. People are saying it's a curse from the forest. They're connecting it to the old legends of the Whisperers." Rosie jumped in, "Legends?" The mayor nodded. "Stories passed down for generations, of a time when humans and Sasquatches sang together in harmony. When that harmony was disrupted, it's said that a curse fell upon the land. The forest would grow silent, and illness would grip those who lived nearby." Maria, ever the skeptic, frowned. "Legends are just that, stories. We need to look at this scientifically." Tom agreed. "Let's interview some of the affected residents. We need to find a pattern, something that ties these incidents together." They split up. Jake and Rosie talked to the local doctor, while Tom and Maria began interviewing the sick residents. What they found was startling. Each affected person had either been near the forest the previous night or had a family member who was. They spoke of hearing the beautiful, melodious calls, just like the team had, followed by an eerie silence. Come morning, the humming in their ears began, accompanied by hearing loss. Dr. Elizabeth Carter, Pine Haven's leading physician, met with Jake and Rosie. "We've run every test we can think of," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "It's not a bacterial or viral infection. It's almost as if something has altered their brainwaves." Rosie asked, "Could the humming sound from the forest have caused this?" Dr. Carter looked thoughtful. "It's possible. Prolonged exposure to certain frequencies can affect hearing. But the exact nature of this illness and its rapid spread is baffling." Returning to their vehicle, the team reconvened, pooling their findings. Tom sighed deeply. "This is bigger than we thought. We might be dealing with something beyond our understanding." Maria added, "But if the legends are true, and this is a result of disrupting the harmony of the forest, then maybe restoring that harmony can reverse the illness." Jake nodded. "Then our next step is clear. We need to find out more about these whisperers and the melodies they once shared with humans. That might be the key." Determined, the team set off back to the Redwoods. The weight of the mystery bore down on them, but they had a glimmer of hope. Somewhere in the depths of the forest lay answers, and it was up to them to find it. Chapter 5. The cryptic grove, the dense redwood forest, seemed endless, its towering trees forming a blanket of shade that let in only sparse rays of sunlight. As the team journeyed deeper into the heart of the forest, guided only by the whispered legends of the whisperers, an unusual calmness pervaded. The air was filled with the scent of moss and ancient wood. Mid-afternoon, as the team trekked through a particularly thick part of the forest, Jake, who was leading the way, stopped suddenly. Before them was a clearing, unlike anything they had seen before. The trees around this clearing were incredibly tall, their trunks thick and gnarled, evidence of their ancient age. The ground, rather than being covered in the usual underbrush, was smooth and clear, carpeted with a layer of soft, green moss. There's something about this place," Maria murmured, her voice filled with awe. Rosie nodded in agreement. "It feels alive." Tom, ever the explorer, stepped cautiously into the clearing. As he did, he felt a tingling sensation, almost as if the very air in the grove was humming with energy. "Do you feel that?" he asked the others. They all nodded, expressions of wonder on their faces. As the sun began its descent, casting the forest in hues of gold and orange, the grove seemed to come even more alive. The hum of energy grew stronger, almost palpable. Curiosity piqued. Jake began to examine one of the ancient trees more closely. His fingers brushed over the rough bark, and he gasped as they encountered something unexpected. "Guys, come look at this." Etched into the tree's bark were intricate carvings, worn by time but still discernible. The carvings depicted scenes of humans and Sasquatch-like creatures, all seemingly in a state of unity and harmony. They danced, sang, and lived side by side. One particular carving caught Tom's attention. It showed the Sasquatches and humans standing in a circle, hands joined, their mouths open as if singing, with musical notes floating around them. "These carvings. They must be centuries old," Rosie whispered, tracing a finger over the images. Maria, with her knowledge of ancient cultures, observed, "This must be a representation of the time the legend spoke of, when humans and Sasquatches sang in harmony." Jake mused aloud, perhaps this grove. Maybe it was a meeting place, a sacred spot where the two species converged to create music. As twilight approached, an eerie sensation began to envelop the team. The sensation of being watched. The hum of energy they'd felt before was now accompanied by faint whispers, almost as if the very trees were communicating. Rosie shivered. "I don't think we're alone here." Tom, gazing deep into the shadows between the trees, responded, "I think you're right. Something, or someone, is aware of our presence." Suddenly, from the depths of the grove, a melodic whistle echoed, the same haunting tune they'd heard the previous night. But this time, it was much closer. The team gathered close, eyes scanning the surrounding trees for any movement. Jake whispered, "Whatever is out there, it's trying to communicate." Taking a deep breath, Tom decided to respond. He attempted to mimic the whistle they had just heard. The forest grew quiet, waiting. Moments later, another whistle, slightly different in tone but clearly a response, echoed through the grove. Maria murmured, "We need to be careful. We don't understand their intentions." But Tom, feeling a strange connection, continued the call and response. With each whistle, he felt a deeper bond forming with the unseen entity. The songs they exchanged were filled with a melancholic beauty, telling stories of an era long lost. Hours seemed to pass in mere minutes. The team was entranced by the symphony of whistles until, all of a sudden, the grove plunged into silence once more. Rosie whispered, breaking the hush, Do you think that was one of the whisperers?" Tom nodded slowly. I believe so. And I think they're trying to tell us something. Jake added, these carvings, the whistles, it's all connected. This grove is a key, and we've just scratched the surface. As the team set up camp within the ancient grove, surrounded by the cryptic carvings and bathed in the soft glow of their campfire, they felt a strange mix of awe and apprehension. They had ventured into a world of legends and had been touched by its magic. But they also knew that the mystery was far from solved. The Whisperers had made contact. The next step was to understand their message and, perhaps, rediscover the lost melodies that once filled these woods. Chapter 6. Tracing melodies. Tom's campfire chat had shifted from casual banter to focused discussion after playing back the recorded whistles from the previous night. It was undeniable that there was a method to the mysterious whistles. They weren't just random calls. There was intent and pattern behind them. But understanding that pattern was beyond their expertise. I've heard of Dr. Elise Harper, Rosie began, sipping her coffee. She's a musicologist and anthropologist who's done extensive research on indigenous tribal songs. Maybe she could help? Tom looked intrigued. Do you think she'd be interested? Only one way to find out, Maria replied, pulling out her satellite phone. A quick call to a mutual contact got them Dr. Harper's number. Elise, intrigued by their discovery and the context they provided, agreed to meet them the next morning. The sun was barely up when a determined-looking woman with fiery red hair tied in a messy bun and glasses perched on her nose walked into their campsite. Dr. Elise Harper, she introduced herself, extending a hand to Tom. After brief introductions and a playback of the recordings, Elise set up her equipment, a sophisticated sound analysis system that she traveled with. She isolated each whistle, examining their wavelengths and frequencies. Fascinating, she muttered, comparing the sounds with an extensive database she had on her laptop. Hours passed, the forest's ambiance the only sound apart from the occasional playback of the whistle recordings. Finally, she leaned back, rubbing her temples. There's a structure here, she began, her voice filled with excitement. These aren't just random notes. They match the tonal patterns of ancient tribal songs, some of which have been lost to modern civilization. It's as if these creatures are trying to communicate using an ancient language of music. Jake looked thoughtful. But why? And why now? Elise looked up, her eyes intense behind her glasses. Well, music, especially tribal music, isn't just about entertainment. It's about storytelling, passing down histories, traditions, warnings. Maria jumped in. So you're saying the Sasquatches are trying to convey a message? Maybe about the mysterious illness? It's possible, Elise nodded. The songs might be a call for help, a warning, or perhaps an attempt to reach out. The group was silent, absorbing the gravity of the situation. Tom finally broke the silence. We need to respond. But how do we communicate with a species using ancient melodies? Elise had an idea. There are traditional instruments that might replicate these whistle patterns. We could try using them to recreate the melodies and perhaps, just perhaps, craft a response. With the sun setting, they decided on a plan. They'd source these instruments the next day and, under Elise's guidance, attempt to communicate with the Whisperers. Night fell, and with it, a heavy silence blanketed the camp. The haunting stillness of the forest felt more pronounced than ever, making the team anxious. We need to break this silence, Tom said, determination evident in his voice. The next day, with the help of some locals, the team managed to gather an assortment of indigenous instruments. Elise took charge, teaching them basic notes and patterns. It's all about intent, she reminded them. Focus on the message, the emotion you want to convey. That evening, with the instruments at the ready, they began. Under the vast canopy of the redwoods, the hauntingly beautiful notes of flutes, drums, and chimes filled the air. They played the patterns Elise had identified, sending their melodies deep into the heart of the forest. The hours ticked by, but the forest remained silent. Exhausted and disheartened, they were about to call it a night when, just as the first light of dawn began to break, a distant melodic whistle responded. It was followed by another, and then another, until the entire forest seemed alive with the calls of the whisperers. Tears streamed down Rosie's face as she whispered, "They heard us." They understood. Tom nodded, overcome with emotion. The dialogue has begun. Elise, her face lit up with wonder and excitement, added, "This is just the beginning. We've opened a channel of communication. Now, it's up to us to understand and respond." As the first rays of sunlight pierced the dense foliage, illuminating the ancient grove, the team felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were not just investigators now. They were ambassadors, chosen by fate to bridge a gap that spanned centuries. The Whisperers had entrusted them with their song, and they were determined to honor that trust. Chapter 7. The shaman's guidance. The morning after their musical endeavor, the team woke up rejuvenated. The notes of the Whisperers were still fresh in their minds, and Tom could sense a palpable excitement among the group. The forest, though silent, seemed more alive, buzzing with hidden energy. As they were discussing their plans over breakfast, a figure emerged from the forest. An old Native American man with deep-set eyes and long, silver hair tied in a loose braid approached them. He moved with a quiet confidence, each step measured and deliberate. Tom stood up, greeting the stranger. "Hello, can we help you?" The man simply nodded, his gaze taking in each member of the team. "You have awoken the song of the Whisperers," he began in a voice as ancient as the trees. "I am Tahoma, shaman of the Miwok tribe. The forest has whispered to me of your endeavors." Elise, fascinated, asked, "You know of the Whisperers?" Tahoma nodded. "They are old spirits, ancient protectors of these woods. Their song is a bridge, a way to communicate between realms. But the bridge has been broken." Jake, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know all this?" Tahoma simply smiled, a knowing twinkle in his eye. "The forest speaks to those who listen. I have heard its tales, felt its pain." Maria, always eager to learn, asked, "What has caused this silence, this pain?" The shaman's face darkened. "Men have forgotten the old ways, lost respect for the spirits. The balance has been disturbed. The Whisperers tried to warn us, but their messages fell on deaf ears, and now a darkness threatens the land." Tom felt a chill. The mysterious illness. Tahoma nodded. "It is not just a disease of the body but of the spirit. The land and its people are in peril. But," he paused, looking at Tom intently, "there is a way to mend the bridge, to restore the harmony." The team exchanged uncertain glances. Tom, feeling the weight of responsibility, finally spoke. "Tell us. We're here to help." Tahoma sat down by the fire, inviting the team to join him. "There is an ancient ritual, known only to the Miwok shamans. It is a way to reconnect with the Sasquatch, to sing with them in harmony once more. But it is not without risk." Elise, ever the academic, inquired, "What kind of risks?" The shaman's gaze was distant. "The spirit realm is not to be trifled with. Once you embark on this journey, there is no turning back. You might get lost in the echoes of the past or be trapped in the whispers of the forest. Jake scoffed. Sounds like a fairy tale. Tahoma simply looked at him, unoffended. Belief is a powerful tool. And sometimes, seeing is not the only way of believing. Rosie, sensing the gravity of the situation, asked, "What do we need to do?" The shaman took a deep breath. "Tonight, under the moon's gaze, we shall perform the ritual. You will need to prepare yourselves mentally and spiritually. This is not a journey for the faint of heart." The day was spent in preparation. Tahoma guided them, teaching them ancient chants and showing them specific herbs and roots that would aid in their spiritual journey. The team, though initially skeptical, could not deny the aura of authenticity and ancient wisdom that the shaman exuded. Night fell, and the clearing was illuminated only by the soft glow of the moon and the flickering fire. The team sat in a circle, Tahoma at the center, chanting softly. As the night deepened, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. A heavy mist rolled in, surrounding them, as if the very forest was closing in to witness the ritual. Hours passed, and just as the first light of dawn was beginning to break, a deep, harmonious whistle echoed through the forest. It was soon joined by others, creating a symphony of hauntingly beautiful melodies. The team, entranced, found themselves joining in, their voices mingling with the whisperers. As the sun rose, the fog lifted, revealing the team, exhausted but exhilarated. Tahoma, his face serene, whispered, "The bridge has been mended. But remember, respect the spirits, honor the balance." Tom nodded, gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you, Tahoma. We won't forget." The shaman simply smiled, disappearing into the forest as silently as he had come. The team, energized by the night's events, felt a renewed sense of purpose. The whisperers had entrusted them with their song, and they were determined to honor that trust. They knew their journey was far from over, but with Tahoma's guidance, they felt better equipped to face the challenges. Chapter 8. Rituals and Revelations. In the clearing where they had camped, the soft hues of dawn painted a serene picture. The early morning mist clung to the trees, giving the forest an ethereal quality. The team, still basking in the afterglow of the previous night's experiences, gathered around Tahoma, who had already started preparing for the ritual. The shaman, with gentle hands, arranged an assortment of stones, herbs, and animal bones in a precise pattern on the ground. "This," he began, "is a sacred circle, representing the unity of nature." Maria, ever the curious one, whispered to Rosie, "Look at those markings on the stones. They seem to match some of the carvings we found in the cryptic grove." Rosie nodded, her journalist instincts kicking in. "There's a story here, one that's been waiting to be told for a long time." As Tahoma continued with his preparations, he instructed the team. "Each of you will stand at a cardinal point of this circle. The ritual we are about to perform is a call, an invitation to the Sasquatch to communicate." Jake, the skeptic of the group, looked dubious but decided to participate, respecting the shaman's wisdom. The team took their positions, and Tahoma began to chant, his voice deep and rhythmic. The words were unfamiliar, but their very sound seemed to resonate with the heartbeat of the forest. As the minutes passed, the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. The team joined in the chant, their combined voices creating a haunting melody. The very air seemed to vibrate with energy, and the forest, which had been eerily silent for so long, seemed to stir. Suddenly, a rustling came from the dense underbrush. The team, startled, looked around, trying to discern the source. Emerging from the shadows was a gentle Sasquatch, its massive form moving with surprising grace. Its deep-set eyes, full of intelligence and curiosity, settled on the group. Tom, instinctively stepping forward, extended his hand, palm upwards, a gesture of peace. The creature, hesitating for a moment, did the same. The two, man and beast, stood there, connected in silent understanding. Elise, eyes wide with wonder, whispered, "It's trying to communicate." The Sasquatch, sensing their receptiveness, began to produce a series of melodic whistles, the same ones they had heard in their drone footage. Tahoma, nodding his approval, began to mimic the sounds, creating a duet of sorts. It became evident to the team that these were not just random sounds but a form of language, a way for the Sasquatch to communicate. Through Tahoma's translations and the intuitive understanding the team had gained from the ritual, they began to decipher the message. The creature, whom Tahoma named Naya, spoke of the harmony that once existed in these forests. The Sasquatches, or the Whisperers as they were known, had coexisted with humans, sharing the bounties of the land. But as time passed and modernity encroached, the forests were stripped, the rivers polluted, and the delicate balance of nature was disrupted. Naya, with a sadness in her eyes, spoke of the loss the Whisperers felt. Their songs, once a source of joy, became a lament, a cry for the restoration of the land they loved. Jake, always the pragmatist, asked, "But why the illness? Why affect the settlements?" Naya, through Tahoma, explained that it wasn't a conscious act of revenge but a consequence of the disrupted balance. The silence of the forest was a manifestation of its pain, and the illness was merely a symptom of a much deeper ailment. Tom, moved by Naya's words, said, "We want to help. We want to restore this harmony." Naya, her eyes reflecting gratitude, nodded. "The path to restoration is long, but with allies like you, there is hope." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, signaling the end of the ritual, Naya retreated into the forest, but not before leaving behind a token. A feather, intricately carved from wood, with the same symbols that adorned the stones of the sacred circle. Tahoma, holding the feather, said, "This is a symbol of trust, a promise of alliance between man and Sasquatch." The team, their purpose renewed and their bond strengthened, knew that their journey was just beginning. The challenges ahead were many, but with the guidance of Tahoma and the support of the Whisperers, they were ready to face them head-on. Chapter 9. The illness explained. As the sun began its descent, the team gathered around the fire that Jake had kindled. The glow of the flames, combined with the tranquility of the forest, provided a stark contrast to the urgency and tension that gripped them. The mysterious illness that had plagued the settlements wasn't just a random occurrence. It was intricately tied to the forest's dissonance. Tahoma, the old shaman, took a moment to gather his thoughts before beginning his explanation. "The forest," he began, "is not just a collection of trees, plants, and animals. It is a living entity, with its own energy and balance. Just as humans have a rhythm, a heartbeat, so does the forest." Tom looked thoughtful. "So you're saying the forest is alive?" "In more ways than you can imagine," Tahoma replied. "Every living being within this expanse shares its energy with the forest, and in return, the forest nurtures them. It's a symbiotic relationship, a delicate balance maintained over millennia." Elise, always keen on understanding the scientific aspect, interjected, "But how does this lead to an illness? Is it some sort of virus?" Tahoma shook his head. "Not a virus in the way you understand it. Think of it more as an energetic imbalance. When the forest's harmony is disrupted, its distress resonates through every living being connected to it. This dissonance manifests in various ways. For humans, it's this mysterious illness. For the animals, perhaps a change in behavior. And for the whisperers, the Sasquatches, it's a deep, mournful silence. Rosie recalled the eerie quiet that had enveloped the forest on their first night. So when the singing stops, it's a sign of their distress? Yes, Tahoma affirmed. The whisperers are especially sensitive to the forest's energy. They've been here much longer than any of us, forming a bond that is almost spiritual. Their songs aren't just communication, they're a reflection of the forest state. When they sing in harmony, it means the forest is thriving. When they fall silent, it's a sign of its suffering. Jake, leaning forward, asked, "How did this imbalance happen? Is it because of logging and urban development?" The shaman nodded gravely. Partly, yes. But it's more than just physical destruction. It's a disregard for the sacred, a failure to recognize the forest's essence. Every tree felled, every stream polluted, sends ripples of discord through the forest. Over time, these ripples have become waves, threatening to drown the very spirit of this land. Maria, her eyes moist with unshed tears, said softly, "We have to do something. We can't just stand by and watch." Tom, ever the leader, agreed. "Tahoma, we want to help. We've seen and felt the magic of this place. Tell us what we can do." Tahoma, his expression thoughtful, replied, "The solution isn't simple. It's not just about planting trees or cleaning streams, although those are essential. It's about reconnecting with the forest, with the whisperers, and with the ancient wisdom that once bound humans and nature together." Elise, ever logical, inquired, "So how do we restore this balance? Is there a formula or a process?" The shaman smiled gently. "There is no formula, but there is a way. It begins with understanding, with listening. The forest has been trying to communicate with us for so long, but we've stopped hearing. We must learn to listen again. And once we do, we'll find the path to healing." As the night deepened, the team, united in their newfound purpose, began discussing their next steps. They realized that their journey had taken on a much deeper significance. It wasn't just about proving the existence of the Sasquatches or unraveling a mystery. It was about mending a broken bond, about healing a wounded spirit. And they were ready for the challenge. Chapter 10. In search of a cure, morning's first light filtered through the towering redwoods, casting ethereal beams upon the forest floor. Tahoma stood with the team, unfurling a hand-drawn map onto a makeshift table. Around the edges, unfamiliar symbols were drawn, and in the center, a path meandered through various landmarks. "This," he began, pointing to a series of circled areas, "is where you will find the herbs we need. Some are more elusive than others, but all are vital." Tom, squinting at the map, noted these places. "They're spread out quite far." Tahoma nodded. "The forest is vast, and each herb thrives in a unique environment. But with determination and unity, you will find them." Rosie, ever practical, took out a notebook. "Can you tell us what we're looking for?" The shaman proceeded to describe each herb, detailing its appearance and the specific conditions it favored. From the delicate moon fern that bloomed under the silvery light to the fiery blaze root hidden deep within the forest's heart, each herb was a puzzle, a test of their commitment. "We need to split up," Jake decided. "Cover more ground that way. We can regroup at sunset." Dividing the map's sections among them, the team set out, each group carrying a walkie-talkie to stay connected. Tom and Maria, taking the northernmost route, soon found themselves navigating a series of narrow ledges. Below them, a pristine stream meandered. "The water starwort should be somewhere here," Maria remarked, referencing Tahoma's descriptions. Hours passed, and just when frustration began to mount, Maria, peering into a rock crevice, exclaimed, "Got it." Cradling the delicate water-loving herb, they carefully stored it and proceeded to their next location. Meanwhile, Elise and Jake trekked deeper into the dense underbrush. Using her knowledge of plant species, Elise quickly identified several of the herbs. However, the sunroot proved elusive. Just as they were about to give up, a soft rustling caught their attention. Turning slowly, they found themselves face to face with a young Sasquatch, curiously examining them. In its hand, it held the sunroot. Realizing its significance, Jake cautiously extended his hand, hoping to communicate their need. The Sasquatch, after a long moment, handed him the herb with a gentle nod before disappearing into the foliage. Rosie and Elise faced their own challenges. The silver mist moss they sought grew only at the base of the oldest redwoods, guarded by their massive roots. Using their climbing gear, they scaled tree after tree, searching for the elusive moss. Their persistence paid off when, just as the sun began its descent, Rosie spotted a silvery patch. Carefully, they harvested the moss, ensuring enough remained for regrowth. As sunset approached, the team converged at their predetermined rendezvous point. One by one, they shared their stories, marveling at the forest's wonders and the Sasquatch's mysterious ways. However, the day's success was tempered by a growing concern. Reports over the walkie-talkie indicated the illness was spreading, with more villagers showing symptoms. "We need to act fast," Tom declared, determination evident in his voice. Returning to Tahoma, they presented their findings. The shaman, after inspecting each herb, nodded approvingly. "Now, we prepare the remedy." Gathering around a large cauldron, they followed Tahoma's precise instructions, mixing, boiling, and chanting ancient verses. As the potion's aroma wafted through the air, a serene energy enveloped them. By dawn, the remedy was ready. The team, accompanied by Tahoma, distributed it among the settlements. The effect was almost miraculous. Those suffering found relief, the humming in their ears subsiding, their vitality returning. However, the team knew their work wasn't done. The cure for the illness was just the beginning. The forest's balance needed restoration, and with Tahoma's guidance and the Sasquatch's aid, they were determined to achieve it. The journey ahead was uncertain, but they were united in purpose, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 11. The healing begins. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. In the heart of the settlement, a makeshift clinic emerged. Large tents were erected, and tables lined with rows of potions, salves, and tools. Using the freshly prepared herbal remedies, the team began treating the afflicted villagers, combining the physical cure with the sonic resonance of the Sasquatch melodies. At the center of it all, Tom had set up a sizable speaker system. The hauntingly beautiful Sasquatch calls were played on a loop, hoping their melodies would amplify the healing process. It was a blend of the ancient and the modern, nature's remedies and technology working hand in hand. The effects were almost immediate. Those writhing in discomfort or plagued by the incessant humming in their ears found relief. It was as if the Sasquatch melodies acted as a balm, soothing the agitated souls and syncing their rhythms with the forest's heart. Maria, using her background in botany, worked closely with Tahoma, learning the intricacies of each herb. Together, they prepared concoctions, ensuring each individual received the precise dose suited to their ailment. Elise and Jake ventured regularly into the forest, not only to replenish their herbal stocks but also to maintain a line of communication with the Sasquatches. Over time, a bond of trust developed. The Sasquatches, sensing their genuine intentions, began to approach them without hesitation. They brought forth herbs unknown to the team, enhancing the efficacy of their treatments. Rosie, with her knack for communication, became the settlement's beacon of hope. She relayed stories from the forest, of the Sasquatch community's plight and their deep-rooted connection with the land. It forged a newfound respect among the villagers, realizing the importance of coexisting harmoniously. Weeks passed, and the village, which had been ensnared in the grip of illness, slowly began to regain its vibrancy. Children's laughter echoed once more, and the markets bustled with activity. The air, previously laden with worry, became lighter. But amidst this newfound optimism, an undercurrent of unease persisted. Tom felt it most acutely one evening as he ventured into the heart of the redwoods. The forest's melodic calls, though returning, felt incomplete. As if a note was missing, a chord was out of tune. The harmony was fractured. Gathering the team, he expressed his concerns. The forest is healing, yes, but it's not whole. There's a discord, a disharmony that we're missing. Jake concurred, I've felt it too. The Sasquatches seem restless. While some come forth, others linger in the shadows, wary and distant. Elise added, it's as if they're waiting for something, or perhaps someone. A profound silence enveloped the group. The weight of their responsibility pressed upon them. They had achieved much, but their mission was far from over. Determined to seek answers, they turned once again to Tahoma. The shaman, ever a pillar of wisdom, listened intently. After a long pause, he spoke, the forest spirit is fragmented. While the physical ailments are being addressed, the soul's wounds run deep. The Sasquatches, being intrinsically tied to the land, feel this rupture most acutely. Rosie, perplexed, asked, but we've used the herbs, played their calls. What more can we do? Tahoma replied, the answer lies not in doing but in being. You must immerse yourselves, feel the forest's pulse, and understand its silent cries. Only then can true healing begin. Realizing the depth of Tahoma's words, the team decided to embark on a forest retreat. Leaving behind their technological trappings, they ventured deep into the redwoods, seeking solitude and reflection. Days turned into nights, and as they meditated, fasted, and connected, they began to perceive the subtle energies around them. The trees whispered ancient tales, the streams hummed lullabies, and the wind carried secrets. On the fourth night, as the moon bathed the forest in its silvery glow, Tom had a vision. He saw the Sasquatches and humans, eons ago, in a circle, singing in perfect harmony, their voices echoing the very essence of the universe. Waking from this trance-like state, Tom realized the missing piece, the human voice. The Sasquatch melodies, though profound, were incomplete without the human counterpart. The ancient bond, once broken, needed mending. Gathering the villagers and the team at dawn, they formed a circle in the heart of the village. As the Sasquatch melodies played, they began to sing, their voices raw and heartfelt. The Sasquatches, hearing this call, emerged from the forest's depths, joining in this chorus. The resulting symphony, a blend of Sasquatch and human voices, was ethereal. It echoed across the valleys, reverberating through every tree, rock, and stream. The harmony was restored. As the final notes faded, a profound peace settled. The forest, In its entirety. Chapter 12. The Lost Song. Tom wandered through the forest, the lingering euphoria of the combined human and Sasquatch voices still echoing in his mind. Yet, the undercurrent of something amiss still nagged at him. The harmonies were wonderful, but it felt like they hadn't yet unlocked the full depth of the bond between humans and Sasquatches. Lost in thought, Tom's feet tread a familiar path that led him to a quiet clearing. A bubbling brook ran nearby, and the dappling sunlight filtering through the thick canopy created patterns on the forest floor. It was here that Tom, as a child, had spent many summer afternoons listening to tales spun by his grandmother. He sat down, leaning against a massive redwood trunk, memories flooding back. He remembered her weathered face, the lines deepened by years of wisdom and laughter, her fingers always busy with some craftwork. But more vividly, he remembered her humming. It was a soft, melodic tune, full of deep emotions, longing, joy, sorrow, and most importantly, hope. As he mentally traced the contours of that melody, a realization hit him. The tune his grandmother hummed wasn't just a simple lullaby, it was reminiscent of the Sasquatch calls. The rhythm, the rise and fall, the pauses, it all made sense now. Could this song be the missing link, the bridge between humans and Sasquatches? Excitement coursing through him, Tom quickly retraced his steps back to camp. Gathering the team, he shared his discovery. The melody, however, was fragmented in his memory. He remembered portions, but not its entirety. Elise, with her keen musical ear, suggested, "Let's reconstruct it. Start humming what you remember, and maybe together, we can piece it back." For hours, the team worked together, each contributing a note here, a change in rhythm there, until they had a version that resonated with Tom's memories. Using their recording equipment, they captured the melody, ensuring every nuance was retained. As dusk approached, they decided to play the melody back to the forest. Amplifying it through their speaker system, the soft, haunting tune echoed through the trees. All waited with bated breath. The response was almost immediate. From deep within the forest, a chorus of Sasquatch calls rose, harmonizing beautifully with the melody. It was as if the song was a beacon, drawing them closer, their voices intertwining in an intricate dance of sound. The forest, in that moment, seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. The trees swayed in rhythm, the wind carried the melody further, and every creature, from the tiniest insect to the majestic deer, seemed to pause and listen. As the melody faded, a group of Sasquatches emerged from the tree line. Leading them was the gentle Sasquatch they had first communicated with. Approaching Tom, it reached out, placing a massive hand on his shoulder, its eyes conveying deep gratitude. Rosie, interpreting the emotions, whispered, "The song. It's an ancient bond. A promise of unity, trust, and coexistence." Tom nodded, tears in his eyes. "It's a legacy. My grandmother must have known, remembered this bond. She passed it on to me, and now we've returned it to the forest." As night enveloped the landscape, the team and the Sasquatches sat together in a circle. The fire in the middle crackled, casting a warm glow on their faces. The barriers of species, language, and past misunderstandings melted away. They were simply beings, sharing stories, songs, and a deep-rooted connection. Jake, looking around, remarked, "This is it. This is the harmony we sought." It was never about just healing a disease. It was about healing a broken bond. Maria, holding a vial of the herbal concoction, added, "Nature has its remedies, yes. But the true magic lies in understanding, trust, and unity." Tahoma, who had observed the entire event, stepped forward. The forest has accepted the song, the promise. You've rekindled an ancient bond, and the land will remember. The night deepened, and one by one, the Sasquatches retreated into the forest, their silhouettes merging with the trees. The team, their mission accomplished, sat around the fire, reflecting on their journey. It wasn't just about discovering the Sasquatches or understanding their calls. It was about recognizing the interconnectedness of life. Every song, every melody, every whisper in the woods held meaning. And in that vast tapestry of sound, the song Tom remembered, a legacy from his grandmother, had found its rightful place, sealing the bond between humans and the mysterious beings of the Santa Cruz Redwoods. Chapter 13. Unseen enemies. The euphoria from the previous night's events still lingered as the morning sun pierced the dense Santa Cruz canopy. Tom's team, having rediscovered the ancient bond, felt they were on the precipice of a new era of understanding and coexistence with the Sasquatches. However, as Jake began packing up the equipment, he noticed something amiss. A small red light blinked from a bush nearby. Pulling apart the foliage, he discovered a sophisticated surveillance device. His face drained of color. "They've been watching us," Jake said, holding up the device. Tom's heart sank. He recalled a fleeting thought he'd had earlier in their mission. Had they been too loud, too obvious? They'd been so engrossed in the forest's mysteries that they hadn't considered the outside world's prying eyes. Elise scanned the surrounding area. If they planted this here, there could be more. We need to sweep the camp. As they spread out, searching for more surveillance gear, Rosie approached Tom, her face taut with worry. Who would do this? Before Tom could answer, the sharp crack of a twig interrupted them. Emerging from the trees was a group of men, all clad in dark clothing and equipped with cutting-edge technology. Their leader, a tall, imposing figure with cold, calculating eyes, stepped forward. "Tom Law, I presume?" His voice dripped with feigned politeness. "I've been following your little adventure closely. The name's Harrington, CEO of Biotech Industries." Tom's heart raced. He'd heard of Harrington. Biotech Industries was infamous for exploiting natural resources, with no regard for the environment or the beings that inhabited it. "What do you want?" Tom demanded. Harrington smirked. "Isn't it obvious? Those creatures, those Sasquatches. They're a gold mine waiting to be tapped. Imagine the possibilities, law, the medical breakthroughs, the advancements in evolution studies. They're sentient beings, not commodities." Maria snapped. Harrington's cold gaze fixed on her. "Everything has a price, darling." Jake took a step forward, his face red with anger. "You think you can just waltz in here and claim this forest and its inhabitants for yourself?" A tense silence ensued, the air thick with hostility. The two groups faced off, eyes locked, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Suddenly, the stillness was shattered by a melodic whistle. It was distant but unmistakably the call of a Sasquatch. Tom's team and Harrington's men turned towards the sound, trying to decipher its meaning. The whistle was followed by others, forming a symphony that seemed to envelop the forest. Then, as if summoned by the call, a group of Sasquatches, including the gentle one Tom's team had connected with, emerged from the shadows. They formed a protective circle around Tom and his group, their expressions grave. Harrington's smirk faded. For the first time, uncertainty flashed in his eyes. "What are they doing?" Tom, feeling a renewed sense of strength with the Sasquatches by his side, took a deep breath. They're protecting their home. The Sasquatches began to hum, their voices resonating with the forest's very essence. The trees seemed to sway in rhythm, and the wind carried their song far and wide. It was a sound of unity, of a bond forged over centuries. Harrington's men, unprepared for this display of unity and power, began to falter. Their technological prowess was no match for the raw, organic might of the Sasquatches and their bond with nature. Seeing his men's wavering resolve, Harrington growled, "Retreat." But even as they retreated, he threw a parting shot at Tom. "This isn't over, Law. You may have won this round, but I'll be back." Tom watched them go, a mix of relief and apprehension filling him. The immediate threat was over, but Harrington's promise of a return loomed like a dark cloud. The gentle Sasquatch approached Tom, placing its massive hand on his shoulder. The connection between them was palpable. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. The Sasquatches were grateful but also wary. They knew that their existence had drawn the attention of forces that saw them as mere commodities. As the day wore on, Tom's team and the Sasquatches discussed the events. It was evident that they needed to be vigilant. Harrington and his ilk would be back, and they had to be prepared. Elise voiced a sentiment that was on everyone's mind. This forest, its creatures, they're not just subjects for our research. They're our allies, our friends. We owe it to them to protect this place. Tom nodded in agreement. Harrington might have technology and resources, but we have something stronger, the bond we share with the Sasquatches and the forest. The sun set, casting the Santa Cruz Redwoods in a warm, golden hue. As the team sat around the campfire, reflecting on the day's events, the melodic calls of the Sasquatches echoed in the distance. A reminder. Chapter 14. Forest's wrath. The serene calm that enveloped the Santa Cruz Redwoods was disrupted by the sound of machinery. It wasn't long before the deafening roars of chainsaws and bulldozers echoed through the forest. Biotech Industries, under Harrington's leadership, had made good on their threat and returned with more manpower and equipment, determined to exploit the forest's secrets. Tom's team watched in horror as trees were ruthlessly felled, animals fled in terror, and the once tranquil forest turned into a battleground. The workers, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, moved quickly, capturing any Sasquatch they could find. "We can't just stand here. We need to do something," Jake shouted, his voice filled with desperation. Maria, trying to strategize, said, "We need to rally the locals, gather as many as we can. We're stronger together." As the group was brainstorming, a scream pierced the air. One of the biotech workers had been lifted off the ground by an invisible force, his chainsaw yanked from his hands. He dangled midair, his face contorted in fear before being gently placed back on the ground. The chainsaw, however, was crushed into pieces. The team turned to see a group of Sasquatches emerging from the forest, their eyes aflame with a mix of rage and determination. They were communicating, their melodic whistles instructing each other, coordinating their movements. They began using their unique abilities that were more than just brute strength. They manipulated the environment, causing the machinery to malfunction, employing a sort of telekinesis that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. As the Sasquatches moved forward, more locals, having heard of the invasion, arrived to defend their land. Together, with Tom's team leading the charge, they rallied against biotech's forces. It was an incredible sight. Locals, equipped with makeshift weapons and tools, and Sasquatches, using their incredible abilities, fought side by side against the invaders. Every tree that was saved, Every inch of land defended was a small victory. Elise, who had been documenting everything, captured the most heartrending moments. Like when a young Sasquatch, separated from its family, was protected by a group of local children who formed a human shield around it. Or when an elderly local woman, her voice hoarse from shouting, sang an old tribal song, urging the forest to fight back. And the forest did respond. Vines and roots erupted from the ground, ensnaring machinery and toppling them over. A gust of wind, far stronger than any natural breeze, blew away the invaders, sending their equipment crashing into each other. As the battle raged on, Tom and his team confronted Harrington, who was watching from a safe distance. His face, once smug and confident, was now twisted in rage. "You can't win this, Law," he spat. "This forest, its creatures, they're mine." Before Tom could reply, a massive Sasquatch stepped forward. It was the same gentle creature they had connected with earlier. Its gaze fixed on Harrington, who, for the first time, looked genuinely afraid. The Sasquatch, without uttering a sound, communicated a clear message, that the forest, its inhabitants, could never be owned or exploited. Seeing their leader shaken, the morale of Biotech's forces plummeted. One by one, they began retreating, leaving behind their equipment and their dreams of exploitation. The aftermath was a mix of relief and jubilation. The forest had been defended, its secrets protected. As the locals celebrated their victory, the Sasquatches, ever enigmatic, retreated into the forest's depths, leaving behind a feeling of gratitude. Tom's team, exhausted but elated, sat around a campfire that night. The fire's warm glow illuminated their faces, revealing a mix of emotions: pride, relief, gratitude. "We did it," Rosie whispered, her voice filled with wonder. Jake, looking at the forest around them, said, "No, we didn't do it alone. The forest, the Sasquatches, they did it. We were just here to support them." Tom nodded in agreement. "Today, we learned a valuable lesson. When we respect nature, work with it rather than against it, we can achieve incredible things." As the night deepened, the melodic calls of the Sasquatches echoed once again in the Santa Cruz Redwoods. It was a song of victory, of unity, of a bond that could never be broken. And as the team drifted off to sleep, the forest, once again at peace, seemed to hum in harmony, a testament to the enduring spirit of its inhabitants and the humans who stood by them. Chapter 15. A farewell to the Redwoods. The sun was casting golden rays upon the Santa Cruz Redwoods, the forest singing its melodies of harmony, and the spirits of every living being therein were buoyant. The vicious battle, where man, beast, and nature collided, had left the forest more resilient, its roots deeper, and its connection with the humans stronger. Tom's team, laden with newfound wisdom and a myriad of unforgettable experiences, was preparing to bid farewell to the magical woods. The members exchanged lingering glances with the towering trees, their leaves whispering words of gratitude and goodwill. The locals, their faces marked with the exhaustion and the joy of victory, gathered around Tom's team. Old and young, they were united by a newfound sense of responsibility, a sacred pledge to protect the forest's secrets and its harmonious melodies. The air was heavy with emotions, teary eyes meeting smiling faces, and hands intertwining in a heartfelt goodbye. The villagers, their voices choked with emotions, expressed their deepest gratitude to Tom and his team. "You have awakened us," said an elderly man, his hands gripping Tom's. "We are the guardians of these sacred lands. We will honor and protect them." Young children, their eyes wide with wonder, hugged each member of Tom's team, whispering promises to sing with the Sasquatches and listen to the forest's whispers. The air was thick with the spirit of camaraderie, and an unspoken promise hung between the villagers and the creatures of the forest, a promise of mutual respect and protection. Tom, his heart swelling with pride and love for the land and its inhabitants, addressed the gathering. This forest is a living, breathing entity, and it has chosen you as its protectors. Honor its choice, listen to its whispers, and sing its songs of harmony. Tom felt the weight of a small hand slipping into his. He looked down into the innocent eyes of a little girl. "Mister, will you come back and sing with us?" she asked with a hopeful glint in her eyes. Tom, his eyes moistening, nodded. "I promise, I will return. We will sing the songs of the forest together, and we will ensure its melodies continue to echo through the ages." As the team departed, they looked back at the crowd of waving locals, their figures becoming smaller as the distance increased. The Sasquatches, hidden within the foliage, their eyes radiating warmth and wisdom, nodded in silent acknowledgement. The journey back was a medley of reflective silence and animated discussions, the team members exchanging stories, revelations, and the life-altering experiences they had encountered. The essence of the Redwoods had seeped into their souls, altering their perceptions and deepening their connection with nature. Maria, looking at the rolling landscapes, said softly, "We have been witnesses to the harmony that exists between different worlds, and it's our responsibility to share this wisdom, to ensure that this harmony prevails." Jake, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, nodded. "The Redwoods have gifted us the melodies of unity. We need to be its messengers, spreading its tunes far and wide." The wind carried the soft whispers of the trees, the harmonious tunes of the Sasquatches mingling with the human songs, creating a symphony of coexistence, of mutual respect and eternal love. The forest was alive with its renewed spirit, its roots intertwined with the souls of its protectors. As the vehicle moved further away from the forest, the team could still hear the harmonious melodies echoing in the distance, a beautiful reminder of the unity that existed between different species, between man and nature. Tom, his heart full, whispered a silent promise to the winds, "We will be back, and your songs will be heard across the lands. Your whispers will be the beacon of harmony, uniting worlds and healing souls." The team, their spirits intertwined with the Redwoods and its inhabitants, looked ahead, the road unfurling into a future where the whispers of the forest would be the guiding tunes, and the harmonious melodies would be the symphony of the universe. The Santa Cruz Redwoods, with its towering trees, gentle Sasquatches, and harmonious tunes, waved them goodbye, its whispers carrying promises of eternal friendship, and its melodies singing songs of hope, unity, and everlasting peace. The end of this chapter marked not a conclusion, but the beginning of a new symphony, a symphony where every note sung by humans and Sasquatches resonated with the whispers of the forest, creating an everlasting melody of coexistence and eternal love. If you have enjoyed our paranormal scary story about the America's Bigfoot Chronicles, please visit us at Paranormal Untold Stories. Come to listen to more of our scary stories collection. Paranormal Untold Stories encourages you to contact us if you have your own untold story that you would like our professionals team to put online as a scary story. Thank you. Please follow our YouTube channel, Paranormal Untold Stories, and encourage others to do the same. Paranormal Untold Stories.